Welcome to Television Sydney News. I'm Sandra Siagian. It's great to have you with us. In this week's news, the state government budget plans to stimulate housing in Western Sydney, Parramatta hosts the Arab Film Festival, and comeback canoer finally makes it to the Olympic Games. But first, Sydney's West will lead the charge in stimulating the housing sector under the state government budget released this week. Christina Pollard reports.
In what New South Wales Treasurer Mike Baird described as the centrepiece of the O'Farrell government's second budget, the Building the State program is designed to accelerate the release of up to 76,000 new housing lots in Blacktown, Camden, the Hills and Parramatta.
Our point, on this budget is what is getting in the way, let's bulldoze it out. Let's get this economy moving, let's get the housing sector moving, and that's what we've done.
Mr Baird also announced $397 million had been set aside to continue construction of the South West Rail Link, while $360 million had been set aside for land acquisition and reports into the North West Rail Line. The Lidcombe to Granville Rail Corridor upgrade is set to receive $86 million in 2012-13, and funding has also been provided for the Liverpool turnback. Other measures for the West include funding for the Blacktown Mount Druitt Hospital expansion, the continuation of the Campbelltown and Nepean Hospital redevelopments, car park upgrades at Nepean, Liverpool and Blacktown hospitals, land purchase funding for new fire stations at Mount Druitt and Yennora, new schools at Wentworth Point, Concord West, The Ponds and Wongi Park in Lakemba, and a new health and support services facility at Kingswood TAFE. $30 million has been set aside for a future Sydney motorway network. However, the location won't be known until the state's infrastructure strategy report is released in September. This is Christina Pollard reporting for Television Sydney News.
Residents from Kellyville Ridge are angry about a development they say will cause traffic chaos. The Joint Regional Planning Panel will decide the fate of the 5-storey building to be built on Maryvale Road next week. The building is set to include 198 units and 2 levels of commercial premises. Community activist Rosie Bonham says residents believe the development will cause more traffic, and more than 900 people have signed a petition against it.
There are a lot of young families that live in this area, and a lot of the kids use the T-way to catch buses in the morning and to come home in the afternoon. This is going to impact on these families because just basically hoping that their kids are going to get home safely. The crossing for the T-way is right on this development side, so between the traffic trying to get in and out of the development, just the general pedestrian and the children coming back in from school have got to try and navigate getting across the driveway.
Ms Bonham was outraged that the final decision would be made by a panel of experts from outside the area.
It's been painful for everybody. A lot of fear is in the community. A lot of people have already been in accidents. They're fearful of this road, and people don't think that they can win. People they need someone to stand up for them, which is me, and to say that we can beat this. So people are going to stand up and support me, but they kind of think like, can we beat it? And I think that we can.
The local Chamber of Commerce president says the development is a good one, but in the wrong location.
We're not against development. What we're after is good planning. So we want the development to blend in with the community and the infrastructure that has already been set. Now, the infrastructure was never planned here for this size of a development. So what we need to say is, okay, we have the development, let's get the infrastructure to suit it. At this point in time, with the way we have the traffic zoning in this area at the moment, this development would only increase the hazards that we already have on the roads, with the number of extra vehicles and number of extra people that'll be subject to the traffic that's in this area.
The state government has introduced a law which could overturn a landmark court victory by a Warrenora Heights mother and her quadriplegic son. Green slip provider QBE were ordered by the Supreme Court to pay Rose Thiering for the care she provides her son Alexander, who was injured in a motorbike accident. But the government has moved to stop payments for care given by people who are not qualified. The government says the cost should be borne by the Lifetime Care and Support Authority. The federal government has plans to build Sydney's second airport at Wilton. However, some residents are against the proposal for an airport at the rural site. Stop Wilton Action Group spokesman Brian Williams says the community has every intention of mounting a successful campaign against the airport plan. Plans to redevelop the former James Hardie site at Camellia have sparked fears of more asbestos-related diseases. German company Redmondis wants to build a waste management plant on the site, but residents fear that construction could disturb the 7 hectares of concrete that was laid over asbestos-contaminated soil 10 years ago. A former RailCorp officer has criticised a decision that will see police take over security on trains. Guymere's Bob Schroeder says replacing transit officers with police was unlikely to work based on past experience under the Greiner government. But the current state government says officers have made hundreds of arrests since the Police Transport Command started in May. A historic Blue Mountains tourist attraction has been forced to close down over safety concerns. The Zig Zag Railway near Lithgow could be off the rails for months after the independent transport safety regulator identified more than 100 problems. The attraction was due to close down next week, but management decided to shut it down immediately. The regulator said there were no immediate threats to safety. The state government has offered assistance to help get the attraction back on track. The first feature film to come out of Gaza in 15 years will make its Australian premiere at Parramatta's Riverside Theatre as part of the Arab Film Festival. The film Habibi retells a legendary 7th century Arabian love poem and will screen on June 28. Festival co-director Fadia Aboud says the Palestinian film is dear to her as a woman Susan Youssef directed it.
It is, of course, does have all the heavy kind of issues of what's going on, but mainly it's a love story. It's a classic Romeo and Juliet. It's about 2 star-crossed lovers that, can't be together because of class, really, and they try their best to stay together amongst all the against all the odds, amongst all the craziness. So that one is really, really close to my heart, and a lot of people are excited that we're opening with a Palestinian film. It's directed by a woman, so that's fantastic as well.
Fellow festival co-director Muna Zayla says while Arabic is the most commonly spoken language after English in the home, Arabic stories are continually absent from the big screen.
This really gives me an opportunity to connect a lot more with my culture and understand the community's politics and just the community in general, whether it's here or overseas.
The 4-day festival will include a free forum highlighting Arab women in film throughout history. A Campbelltown councillor wants mining companies to give money back to the community. Fred Borg is a member of the Associated Mining-Related Councils who has come up with a royalties for regions scheme. If passed by the state government, the scheme will require mining companies to pay an annual amount to councils near a mining project. Councillor Borg wants the first instalment to go towards upgrading the dangerous Appin Road. Sydney will have its first dedicated mountain bike track at Lucas Heights after Sutherland Shire Council and ANSTO agreed to build one in the area. Cyclists and dirt bike riders had been banned from accessing the land last July.
We've ridden out there for probably nearly 20 odd years, along with the motorbikes and the 4-wheel drives, not really knowing what land, who owned the land and what it was. And last year, 11 months ago, ANSTO decided that they wanted everyone out of their land. So we decided to go in and request legal use of their land, and that gave us access to a few other landowners as well. So about 11 months in the process, but yeah, it's come along good.
The council will provide $160,000 to develop the Mill Creek Conservation Park, which will include 18 kilometres of mountain bike tracks and 5 kilometres of bushwalking tracks. Mr Delacour says the next step is to make the trail sustainable to take the impact of at least 2,000 riders a week.
We've pretty much mapped out, chosen a few areas where we'd like to have the trails. They're existing trails, so it's nothing new. Just closing off the ones that aren't so used, and limit the amount of trail out there. So we're going to do our best to keep everybody happy.
Olympian Sid Taberley says the track will help develop athletes who previously rode on short trails at Helensburgh and the Royal National Park.
Yeah, look, obviously there's some great trails around here. A lot of it's fire trails, so to have somewhere that's specific for mountain biking, that's got some single track that's made specifically for mountain biking, I think everyone's certainly looking forward to that.
Mr Delacour hopes the trail will be completed in 6 months. Prospect will soon be home to a water theme park, Wet n Wild. The company behind the water attraction, Village Roadshow, expect the park to attract 900,000 visitors a year and create 300 jobs. They say the theme park should be operational by late next year. Parramatta Jail is again filled with inmates as filming for the new movie Convict has started. Actor Frank Violi, who plays the role of prison guard Williams, said the cast is made up of people from a variety of different backgrounds. The film is set for release early next year. Parramatta entrepreneur Lisa New is bringing real underwear back to Aussie backsides through her new range for men and women, named Tuffys and Tuffettes. But the idea did not come without its cost. The managing director of the Arndale Park-based company, B&B Group Australia, created the brand after Bonds closed down most of its Australian manufacturing operations in 2009.
My mother was previously working at Pacific Brands, and when the news came that she was losing her job, it was definitely a shock for all of us. So that's where the idea came of Tuffys and Tuffettes. We really wanted to create, once again, an Australian-made brand made by Australians for Australians.
Miss New spent 3 years developing her product before she launched the range in February. She's employed 10 former Pacific Brands employees and plans to hire more as the company expands.
And it was not just my mum, it was other parents, brothers, sisters, other family members who would just have this dramatic effect of losing their job. My mother obviously was just in her early 50s, so she certainly wasn't due to be retiring anytime soon, and unfortunately most of our other competitors did move their work offshore, so which really limited any possible jobs for the future.
The products can be recognised by the green and gold Australian-made kangaroo logo on the packaging. A 10-year-old girl has raised $300 to sponsor a dingo by selling handmade cards. The required funds will cover the dingo's veterinary bills, worming tablets and food for the next year. The Bargo Dingo Sanctuary have 29 dingoes up for sponsor and hope more people will follow the young girl's lead. An Ironbark Ridge Public School in Rouse Hill received a visit from former Western Sydney High School student and AFL convert Israel Folau this week. Folau fielded questions from the eager young crowd along with injured teammate Reece Kuyu.
Yeah, I went to Western Sports High a while back, so it means a lot to me, and especially not only that, like the young kids. Certainly I know how excited they are when they see their heroes and all that. So when I was a kid, I used to enjoy some of the footballers I used to watch coming to school. So it's, I can imagine it's an exciting time for them, and it means a lot for me as well.
The former rugby league star said it was great to be able to give back to Western Sydney.
The season's it's been exciting, and it's obviously it's been very challenging for myself. I'm definitely happy with the progress so far with how I'm going, and I've only played 6 games, but there's certainly a long way to go, and I'm still chipping away. So I've just got to keep working hard, and hopefully with the years to come, I can see a big improvement.
Paige Hadley, a former junior with the Penrith District Netball Association, has realised a lifelong dream after debuting for the New South Wales Swifts in the ANZ Championship. The honour has led to her winning the title of Senior Sports Star of the Month for the Penrith Valley Sports Foundation in May. 19-year-old Hadley says she hopes to be selected in the Under-21s Australian team and play in the World Youth Cup next year. And modern pentathlete Chloe Esposito will live high in the French mountains to maximise her blood and oxygen levels as part of her final preparations for the London Olympics. Cosula's Esposito will compete on the last day of the Olympic Games. The modern pentathlon includes a 200-metre swim, fencing, show jumping and a 3-kilometre combined pistol shooting and running event. Campbelltown 10-pin bowler Daniel Webb has won this year's Sydney Youth Cup. Webb's win in the 2-day international tournament was only his second appearance in a major competition. 19-year-old Webb says his goal is to be ranked number 1 in the country. He will compete in the New South Wales Open in August. Sebastian Mark-Zach has made it into the Australian Olympic team despite giving up his sport of canoeing for almost 5 years. The Pemulwuy resident started training again when it was announced after the Beijing Olympics that his event of the 200-metre sprint would be included in the London Games for the first time.
I actually gave up the sport, and it was mainly because maybe lack of interest, and maybe I didn't even make the Olympic team that year, and that was my focus, the 2004 Olympics. And yeah, I had a good couple of years off, maybe until 2010, and I only found out that the 200 metres was introduced in the London Olympics, and yeah, that's what brought me back into the sport. So the 200 metre event is my event, and I always loved it, and that's what I loved competing in, and yeah, here I am, made the Olympic team, and happy to go now.
These will be the first Olympics where there will be A and B finals for canoeing. This will mean the top 9 compete in the A final and those ranked 10th to 18th compete in the B final.
Definitely the biggest dream any athlete, any sports person could ever dream of, so it's a big honour to represent the country and obviously to achieve a goal that you've set for yourself and achieve it. It's awesome, definitely awesome.
The 29-year-old first started training in the sport 15 years ago.
I think the sport helped a lot, where Dad wanted to really focus me away from the, let's say, youthful behaviour and put me into the sport, keep me busy. And yeah, it sort of developed from there, from like once a month sort of activity to once a week, and then nearly every day, and then twice a day. So it became a recreational sport. From a recreational sport it went to a professional sport for me.
And that's all the news we have time for this week. For more information about any of these stories, pick up your local Fairfax community newspaper. I'm Sandra Segian, and we'll see you next time.